Yep.
Okay. So the structure. All right, what's up, Dan? Good morning.
It is an early morning. Yep.
It is, or a late night, depending on what your crowd is, or it's just prime time in Korea right now. So, shout out to all
Fair
the new
enough.
Korean fans. So this is a match. It's quarterfinals of the World Championship. You have JDG, which is a powerhouse team. They They won the Chinese spring season, summer season. They won the international event in May. So they are on the path that's called the Golden Road. No one's done it, which is to win everything in a calendar year. Similar to getting like a Grand Slam in tennis, or getting all four majors of a sport.
Your analogies are lost on me, but
Yeah,
hopefully not others.
that's right. Um, so they are the heavy favorites, but KT Rolster is a Korean team that has historically had a lot of success, and they have a lot of fans because they were one of the top two or three teams early in League of Legends lore history. And recently they've put together this, I don't want to call it a super team, but players that didn't quite make it, who have all been to Worlds but didn't quite finish with the teams or orgs that they were with before. And so now they've brought them together to say, all right, hey, now you've got an organization that will support you, and let's see what you can do. And they've been great. They were the second best team in Korea. Yesterday, the number one team got upset in a pretty savage way, but I think a lot of that had to do with draft decisions, and I don't think that the play isn't there, but it's tough when they're playing an uphill battle.
Okay,
So
so if you want the commentary of the ignorant, the draft is happening right now, yes?
yeah, so they go
So
in
I'm
a
watching. Yeah, yeah.
they do a cycle where each team gets a ban times three. So it went from a Rumble ban to
Times
Zaya,
three.
Nico, Callista, Azir, and Jarvan. And what people are trying to ban out is the most powerful picks in roles that they want to like contest, where they want to say, I want to be good in this space.
What do you mean times three? You get 15 bands?
There are no, so sorry. Each team gets a ban. Each team gets three bans. Then each team
Yeah.
gets three picks. Then each team gets two more bans, and then each
Okay.
team gets two more picks. But
Interesting.
it's all snake format. So this
Yeah,
first
yeah.
pick was Oriana, and she's considered to be the strongest mid laner that you can play right now. And
Okay.
so it makes sense that they got rid of Azir, who is considered to be like the third. Really, Nico and Azir are the two next best mid laners. And so that's why they first picked Oriana, because now they're saying, hey, if you want to battle us for mid, you're gonna have to do it with something way down in the strength ladder.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side, they did something similar, which was they grabbed Sejuani, which is a really strong ganking jungler, and they got rid of the other two really good fighting junglers for the early game, Wukong and Vi. And Jarvan is the best, but they banned that themselves, saying, let's get rid of the best one. We'll be very happy playing Sejuani, and then taking away your ability to get these two champions, Vi and Wukong. Rumble is the top laner in the patch, and probably the single top champion for just his power level. He has the highest damage ultimate AoE in the game, and so he can swing a lot of team fights, and this environment is pretty healthy for a lot of team fighting. The
As
word
someone that doesn't know anything about metas, never mind champions and kits, I'm trying to think a little bit big picture here. So if I were building comps and deciding bans or, trying to like be a hypothetical coach that has no information, I would shy away from trying to ban out um, multiple junglers. I feel like if you're fighting for my ganks are good and in exchange you have bad lanes, that just seems like not a good trade.
in at this level, the jungler is the glue to all the lanes. So there are environments where having the better jungler just means you're the better team. And so playing towards their strength, and in this game, Kanabi, here on JDG, he might be the single best jungler in the entire world. And so when you put him down a peg and you give him, you take him away from aggressive players, then you're doing something. So drafting this is actually very similar to drafting Magic, which is a game that a lot of League of Legends players play. And it's the idea of like, I need to take the most powerful card out of pack 1, but after that there's a little bit more of a what is going on around the table? Should I stay in these colors? Should I get a card that pairs well with what I've already picked, or should I get another individually strong card? Right?
Yep.
And then
I gotcha.
you build
Even
from
the
there.
context that like they have a world class, or I mean, I guess everyone's world class, that they have the top jungler anywhere is pretty relevant for targeting that as multiple bans even.
All right, before we get into the game, I want to take a moment to say thank you. All right, you guys are being awesome as supporters of the channel. We have almost 1,000 new subscribers. So when we hit that mark, we're going to be doing a giveaway at the Academy, 10 hours. You can use it however you want, whether or not you want macro, micro, performance psychology, or whether or not you want to give it away to friends. You can work with your Clash team, whatever you want. We're here for you. All you need to do is like, subscribe, and comment on one of the videos at Worlds, and anyone who's done that over the course of this entire tournament will be entered for the sweepstakes. So again, thank you so much. Let's get on the game. So that's kind of like, Noah sitting on my right during Lorwyn Morningtide and trying to force blue-white Merfolk. And it didn't, but it didn't matter. It was just, it's like sometimes it doesn't matter, and sometimes enough gets through, or you just get to build a strong enough team anyways. In this case, it's probably best to look at just what's actually here as opposed to like all the theory that went on with it.
Sure.
The biggest things to point out are the differences in the jungle and top lane is a huge one, and then also how they've chosen to play their AD carries. These are the two biggest team fighting, late game scaling AD carries that you can play. And so each of these teams was like, no, me. No, I'm going over the top. And Zeri is considered to be the best endgame carry in the entire game because she has this consummate AD carry kit that allows her to fly around team fights, deal tons of area of effect damage, while being very fast, hard to kill. So she's just high damage, high mobility, and that's very important for fights at this level, especially.
Okay, so forgive my lack of familiarity with literally everything. So the team that has the scaling ADCs, is that the same team that has the best jungler?
So, yeah, in this game, Kanabi is the really, really strong. I mean, this team, JDG, Golden Road, Ruler, World Champion, Knight might be one of the best mid laners of all time. Kanavi is probably the best jungler in the world right now. 369 is probably the best top laner in the world right now. Like, this team is insanely stacked. So they are favorites by all accounts. But also they said, because of that, because we are better than you, we're going to just go blow for blow with you and try to match you in the scaling department. We don't want to be outmatched in any way. And so we'll take a champion like Zeri and just play for a nice long game. So what we're going to see this game is some really explosive team fights.
So how would you combat that when you're the opposition? Like, especially when you spend two of your bans on the jungler and you're facing the best mid laner and the best top laner. What is your plan to not just get crushed?
Tempo. You have to make plays, and you have to constantly be opening doors, asking questions, to use a poker analogy. Like, you have to ask them difficult questions over and over and over, and see how often they come up with optimized results. And if they don't, how can you exploit it? And
sure, but it's like, when you're the one trying to come up with the questions and you
Mhm.
know that you're up against the players that are the best at finding the right answers,
Mhm.
how do you kind of innovate in that department? Because if you ask normal questions, they have all the answers. So like what's an example of this is a way that we're going to go off the beaten path where sure technically like we're still some amount of underdog, but if it goes well, it could actually snowball as
Mhm.
opposed to I don't know, you're sort of middle of the line, everyone knows how to respond to this kind of plans.
Mhm. No, that's a great question. The first source would be to play towards any of your wins, despite being a lesser player. And these guys are still world class, right? No one on KT can be called not world class. They're just outmatched here, but they will try to do matchups where they're strong. So, for example, Oriana is a very strong mid laner, and she can push pretty easily. She's got lots of area of effect abilities, and she absolutely shines in team fights. But Akali is an assassin that is highly mobile and plays very, very well into Oriana in the middle and late game. So one of the things that KT is going to do that they did with the draft is basically saying, what are you going to do about Akali in the end game where she's just much stronger than anything you offer? And so KT right now, I'll mention what scaling is. Scaling is,
Don't they already have an answer to that question though? If they have the two ADCs that scale the best and they're going to keep the lanes in checks, they have the best laners. Like
well,
how is that question not already answered?
because you try to split them apart. This team, JDG's team, is going to look for team fights because they're the better team, because they have the team fighting mid laner, they have the team fighting AD carry, they have a top laner that gets outscaled. You're probably pretty familiar with Jackson Renekton.
A little.
And
I
a little
mean, when
bit.
you say pretty familiar,
Yeah.
we're gonna deceive the listeners.
Well, it's you're right. As I should say, this is probably where you know the most about what's going on. Oh, Jack's flashing on top to get a counter strike. Nice trades.
Just so we're clear, the ceiling on most is extremely low.
Yeah. the Jax has the ability to win games by himself on side lanes because he's such a good pusher. He's also a very good team fighter. Renekton is much more about this like bully that's trying to be stronger than Jax for this kind of time frame, level 3 through 15. Jax is
Missing that cannon was awkward.
hmm?
Missing the cannon in top was awkward.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a tilter, and the casters like to talk about that because that's such a huge amount of gold that they rely on at all these stages. But so
you could tell it was planned too, just waiting.
right, and you're sitting there, you want that. What KT is going to try to do is to put later in the game 1, 3, and 1. And they're going to say, we are better. Our composition can do this better than you can answer it, despite any of your play skill. Because Akali and Jax are singular strengths in their individual lanes. And so as the game goes on, they're going to move Aphelios and Lulu to the middle of the lane, and they're just going to basically fight to kill waves. That's it. They're just going to look to keep the waves pushed, whereas Akali and Jax are going to try to snowball their individual advantages that they have from the draft. Akali being able to kill Oriana. Oriana can never kill Akali. End game, Jax can kill Renekton. Renekton cannot kill Jax.
Huh.
And that's... Go ahead.
Keeping the waves pushed, and you have, a competent defender in the mid lane, but not somebody that can 1v3, doesn't that give that team a lot of time with the map, with objectives, with we can farm our way everywhere that isn't mid? Like, how is this trade a net positive to just stick 3 down the middle? Like, are you really trying to take the Nexus that way?
Yeah, so when the game goes to the end, you basically don't have your, like, this 1-1-2 with a jungler start kind of just fades away. You need to have all 5 people in a place that can actually create pressure, because ultimately it's about breaking turrets. You need to be able to win fights and break turrets. There's going to be a good amount of fighting around dragons, but the Baron is 100% where the balance of the game falls. Where the team that is able to secure themselves the Baron is going to have a good time. That's where you favor this team fighting composition, right? And the just straight 5v5 prowess of this Chinese team that, you know, in China they team fight a lot more, and so the players are much more practiced and they're really, really good at spacing. Meaning that they're going to be holding positions really well. Hold on, we got a really big fight here. We went for a big engage. Rel tried to stun everyone up. Renekton is at his strongest that he'll ever be right now. See this wave around him? He's dealing tons of damage with that, so he's able to take these fights and drag them on for longer and longer. When we come to the team fights, Rel is this like, I move into the middle of the fight and I make a vacuum happen. Renekton is this like hammer to the anvil flanking guy that's going to say, all right, you need to either choose between me or Rel. One of the two of us is going to get on top of your team. Zeri and Orianna are kind of looking from behind the Rel, and they have Rakan that's able to join as well. So this is kind of what their team's trying to do, where they're trying to create like these two in front, these two in back, but far enough away that they never get hit by the same spell. And Renekton is going to try to force you in. Right, so he's going to try to force you into a space and say the fight's happening right here, and that's where our area of effect mage and area of effect AD carry are going to have a lot of effect, and they're going to have the most success. So they are going to love it when it's time for Baron. So as soon as 20 minutes starts, the biggest things that they're going to try to do is try to get some amount of vision in this northern quadrant, and they want to keep this wave pushed. And by doing those two things, you unlock your ability to slide towards the Baron pit.
So if that's their incentive, aren't they going to stick 3 in mid lane when KT has 3 in mid lane? Like how?
No.
Why wouldn't you be?
Yes, they'll put 3, but they'll have their 4th and 5th members will be much closer, because the intent will be to take away this area of the map. So they're going to put all 5 people in this vicinity. Whereas Jax and Akali are actually going to try to deal damage to turrets. Renekton and Orianna are not. Their job is going to be to go pick up the wave, send it back, buy your team 30 seconds. Hold on, Renekton just surviving, face tanking with his empowered Q. I'll just back up for a moment. The minutia of these things, when Renekton has his rage bar filled up to 50%, it turns red and all of his spells get better. And Renekton's big strength in this middle game is that he has one ability that when it's empowered, it deals extra damage and it heals him. So he's able to take these fights and do better for longer in this stage. That will eventually end as these carries get to level 16, and especially once they get 3 items. When they're 2 items, they're pretty good. And at 3 items is where they can basically kill the crocodile before the crocodile can threaten them, because attack range is really, really good later. So as far as the 5 and denying them, right? So Jax and Akali, their objective is, I'm stronger than you in the side lanes, so I'm going to try to pull your team apart and force you to like kind of rip you at the seams, trying to defend us. And our 3 is meant to be this like bastion that's just saying you shall not pass further than mid lane, or further than the middle of the map. If you give us a wave, we will clear it, and then we will back off. And the reason
so
you can
assume that you're just like behind on the Baron, EV, where you're probably just not going to outmaneuver and outspace the best team at that. So you might as well go extra hard on the side. Like, do you just give up Baron?
Yeah, that is a likely scenario where they say we are that much stronger, and that can be why you draft this composition, where you're like, I need to win side lanes, so I've picked the 2 best side laners available. Hold on, we'll watch this fight. A lot of area of effect damage coming out. Sejuani just used her ultimate to throw that big ice storm in the middle of everybody and lock them up. They get a kill for themselves. Aphelios, these two guns right here, this is the most complicated champion in the game. So I'll just give you an overview, but he has 5 guns that he cycles through and they have different abilities. And that bottom row is like his ammunition for each gun. And so he's trying to constantly get into the best ones possible. All right, this is Akali. She dealt tons of upfront damage to get those guys low, but then Zeri was able to turn it because she's the carry, and as the fight goes on, she's going to be doing better and better and better. And that's sort of where that dynamic's going to be, is where this is tons of upfront damage, but Zeri is continuous damage. Khan jumps in, tries to get the engage. They put everything onto trying to kill the carry. Carry flashes back. Lulu is an enchanter, so Lulu's just buffing up the carry. And you see every spell that they could tried to aim at aiming, but aiming just constantly stepped back. He put himself right at the edge of his own attack range, making it really hard for the enemy team to get onto him. Did you see that dynamic? Like, they just kept trying to get to him, and he just positioned himself far away. So that's very promising for them, and Aphelios is very good at doing that. That'll be good for them to continue. Now, see here, blue team gets this dragon, and see how red team's not contesting? They've actually already moved into this 1-3-1, which tends to happen at the 14-minute mark of the game. This is because the plates went away, the turret platings. There's no more prize for the team to like overload in one direction. But now JDG is going to stay together a lot, right? The idea of moving together is that they know they're the stronger team fight team. And by moving together, they'll be able to secure this part of the map for themselves. And once they have that, they will feel comfortable moving towards the Baron. Now, this is, very early to consider Baron, but they're already thinking about it. You can see that the other team's doing the opposite. They're like, all right, you've got strength here. I've got my 3 near mid. And then I put my strong solo laners off to the side of the map. And we're trying to pull you apart as much as possible. Now, KT actually has 2,000 gold to their advantage right now, which is a big deal for them. The fact that they're ahead, it's much easier to play this split push type strategy when your champions are individually ahead as well, because they're going to have enough gold to actually swing these matchups in their favor quickly.
Is that just from the turret?
It's taking the turret. They took more plates. They're up in kills. That play in the bot lane, JDG tried to make an engage happen, and instead aiming got the kill. Aphelios got the kill. And so enemy team put a lot of resources into killing you. You see it again right here. Rel trying to go in. That was Oriana's ultimate that just whiffed. They are putting so much effort into killing this one guy. There's a second ultimate, third ultimate. 3 teamfight ultimates were just used trying to kill Akali. And Akali, being the slippery ninja that she is, got away from all of it. That's a huge, huge win for KT. And the fact that they're able to do that means that they're actually in really good shape. This team fighting team is trying to make plays to try to get any kind of dent onto these two. And then ultimately it'll have to go through Aphelios as well. Despite the whole team going bottom seemingly for that play, Zeri stayed in the mid lane. Because her job is, I keep you off this turret. Doesn't matter that you have 3 people here. And notice that it's always Lulu, Aphelios, and Sejuani. Sejuani's going to like take turns taking the camps that are close to mid. But she basically, if she ever goes for this camp or this camp, you're going to see these guys necessarily back off. Because they can't be up front with the opportunity for a fight to happen. They don't want any fights. Right now, this is their prize for Akali surviving all of that action in the bot lane. They get this Rift Herald, and it's a pretty big deal for them.
Yeah, interesting that the perceived dominant forces in the team fight in this 3v1 where they use all their ults would have it be a miss.
Say it again.
It seems like a big upset to have the team that's best at team fights in a 3v1 using all the ults and not get anything for it.
Big time. Big time. Now, they're not too concerned because, like I said, this is the big prize. Killing an Akali with nothing spawning for 2 minutes isn't a huge thing, but what they're trying to do is to get her just a little bit far behind, some amount of time where she's not picking up all of this experience. We just saw a little dive in the mid lane.
Would that be some weird variance, if you will? Or would you say they're underestimating Akali's spacing or just preservation abilities?
Okay, that's a great question. I would say underestimating. They could have done that slightly better. That push. They really wanted one more
if
attack.
this is the best of the best against the almost best of the best, like how do we miscalculate that? You know what I mean?
They should have been able to get it with the three of them going in. The mitigating factors, they lost track of Sejuani, the jungler. So she was going to show up at some point, and they started thinking about exit strategies rather than securing the kill. And then I'm going to give a huge shout out to BDD, the player on Akali. He buffered every single spell that was going to hit. Like, he responded in the best way possible. Orianna, this was mistake number one. She put her ball out and she threw her ultimate, which creates like this big vacuum. Akali's E backflips you just enough range to get you out of the ball. So the ultimate happened here and it whiffed because Akali just dashed right out of it. So that's number one. Oh, go.
Yeah,
I'll come back to it in a little bit.
Technicalities, yeah. Do you think
All right,
are they just expecting?
Let me just say really quickly, this right here, the fact that they're actually fighting is only because they think they're really far ahead. This is KT talking. This team fight team should favor the blue team, but because they're ahead, they're feeling really confident because of those missed plays, because of everything. So they're able to take that fight, and you see that JDG tried to force it. And like, normally you wouldn't think that this area of the map is a place where blue team wants to fight, and it's not, because they have a vision disadvantage. They have to walk through wards. They're walking into your terrain. It's very difficult. And
yeah, speaking of vision, that's kind of what I was going to ask about. Like, are they expecting the jungler because they don't have vision? Like, do you feel like maybe Akali was spacing in a way that can like bluff the approach of a jungler? Is that a thing that can be happening here?
That can be a thing. They did have known information on Sejuani being near mid. I would have to go back to see the exact specifics of when they lost vision. But the big things were that when you have a team fight team and there's no objective up, sometimes you can say, all right, let's just go for something, and sort of that optimal game theory approach where you have a decent split on all of your options so that you don't become readable becomes in play. That play to send 3 people to bot lane to attack the Akali, that's non-standard. And
yeah, that feels too aggressive.
And you got it exactly. And it opened the door where if Akali plays near perfectly, then she can survive. And if she survives, it's going to feel really bad because your team will be weak while they're waiting for all 3 of these ultimates.
Taking this big risk?
Exactly. But the reason they're thinking that is because, hey, we want to not be predictable. In this case, I think it's one of those, I have the nuts. I don't need to do anything. I literally just put money in the, like, they shouldn't have been bluffing at anything or creating anything non-standard, because they would have been so happy in the team fights.
Yeah, that's what's confusing to me. Like, if you're a favorite in the standard case, why deviate? There's just no incentive there.
Pressure. I mean, as far as why would you want to, you don't. And the coach, it's going to be up to the coaches to remind them of that. But when you're on the world quarterfinal stage, when you're the golden roaded team that is expected to win the tournament, and you're playing against Koreans in Korea, and actually there are 2 Koreans on your team, Kanavi and Ruler are both Korean as well. The crowd here is different than it is anywhere else in the world, and they take a great amount of pride in their players, and so there can be some incentive to reach, when the adrenaline takes over.
Yeah, sort of a shame for staying optimal, but it makes sense.
Yeah, and that's the truth, and why people play sports ever. It's not just the best team that always wins, because in those moments, you know, you can create something for
Sure, yeah,
yourself.
that's why I'm asking, like, is there some
Mm-hmm.
way to sort of blame this on variance? Like, and
No.
I don't mean, some, random chance mechanic. Like, you could argue that there's variance in chess at the top levels. And I'm wondering if this is kind of similar. It sounds like it isn't so far, but seemed like a possibility to my naive self.
Yeah, it's very hard to dictate what's completely optimal and whether or not you can create something that's 100% effective ever, because there's so much movement, counter movement. You know, even that dive on Akali. You know, the fact that she was immediately able to use E to dodge one ultimate. The next ultimate that came out was Rakan. Rakan has a like area of effect charm where he just kind of runs through you. A trick that you can use against that is casting a spell that has movement on it. So when you're moving is when you're crowd controlled. And so your crowd controlled kind of gets mitigated because I'm already moving. You're not actually stopping me from moving. So she used her ultimate to dash through the Rakan as Rakan's spell was resolving. And it's sort of like, you know, using the stack in Magic. I'm casting a spell that's supposed to hold you right here. You respond by dashing over here. And so I hold you, but now you're far away from anyone on my team that can follow up. And so you have to give a lot of credit to Akali for doing that in those high pressure situations, but it was certainly available because they kind of did 1, then 2, then 3 rather than mushing in together. But then you're wondering, like, if I have to do all 3 people together, is it worth it for me blowing all my spells?
Right,
If
even in your relatively good case, like, is that strictly speaking a net positive? And maybe the answer is just like an easy flat out yes, but that's why I'm asking, because I don't know.
yeah, I don't think so. I think it was a mistake for them to go for that play. It was like you said, based on all the factors that we were talking about, it was too aggressive. They
Yeah, so I think it's easy to establish that, like, okay, your failure mode is like pretty not great, and if that's the case, then you need your success mode to make up for that. Even when your probabilities are imbalanced, even when you're,
Mhm.
90% for this to go well, it needs to go sufficiently well to justify the 10% where it goes horribly.
I
And
love your poker mind,
I'm
man.
I'm not sold on that they were hitting that threshold, if that
You're
makes
you're
sense.
you are spot on thinking of it from the stance of like, do I raise here? You know, it's just, is this working? It does this bluff work enough for it to be worth it?
This is
Right?
more like pot odds. Yeah, it's
Pot
like
odds, yeah.
you need your advantage to be big enough to justify the the low probability disadvantage being enormous.
Yep. They did not meet that threshold
Hmm.
for sure. That is
I
a
guess
great
I should be their coach.
yeah.
Is the conclusion here.
Well, at least, you know, being a strategist, right, and talking about stuff like that, I guarantee you, not all these teams are thinking in those terms.
Yeah, that would make sense. And I guess in case anyone was wondering about variance and chess and how the hell does that make sense, it is a very static game. Um, if you're playing at an elite level there and everybody's got tons of lines memorized and not just openings but mid games, and you might know 20 or 30 moves in um, certain lines, then there is a case to make for you just got unlucky that you played into a system where you know a lot of different paths to go down, and the one that they chose, they happen to be 3 moves more familiar with than you are, and like that sucks, and you lost.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not strictly speaking indicative of um, they have some skill advantage on you. So there's a case where, like, yes, there's no hidden information and there's no random chance in the game mechanics, but to an extent, there's random chance in who prepped which things to what depth, etc.
Big time. Let's watch this fight real quick. So this is JDG's Hail Mary. KT had the inside track on the Baron. They had good position on it. JDG basically said, this is our last chance to survive this game, is to just win this coin flip. It's weighted against us for sure, but...
This game looks over?
Yeah, this is over.
Reading that? Yeah.
It would take demonstrable misplay. But that fight right there, in theory, same thing. You know, we'll call it a coin flip. It's not, because KT should just win the fight with the amount of resources they have right now. But you're better off trying to win this 10% fight at Baron than just giving them the Baron and then letting them rip you apart with the Baron buff.
Mm-hmm. Yep, makes sense. Yeah, if you're gonna lose in the standard case, you gotta deviate.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. And so great play by them to look for it. There's a teleport here. You saw an engage here. They tried to come in. They tried to make that window for themselves, but it wasn't enough to get it done.
Oof. Well, that was surprisingly interesting for my ignorant eyes.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. I wanna go find this play in the bot lane. All right, so this was the first time that they tried to make something happen. And this was a much better shot. This is going into Aphelios. And you see this sort of line where the jungler is coming in. The support already has a little bit of a corral here. But enemy team has two people nearby, right? So this Aphelios isn't ever stepping here. He's never going through this corridor without having this help. And so they're feeling pretty good. They've got access to two ultimates. Sejuani's is almost coming up. So he's like, okay, I can play pretty aggressively. These two guns are the highest burst damage area of effect that Aphelios can have. The red gun is like fast attack speed, and the blue gun is a flamethrower. Everything's area of effect. And so you could actually question entirely whether or not they even should have tried to fight this guy while he had these guns up. And that's part of Aphelios's kit, where it's like, do you ever need to, you know, when can you fight this guy? Certain gun combinations are really, really strong. This one's really good for area of effect, so it's great for team fighting. And you see these bullets right here? This is how much ammunition you have. Mm-hmm. When you cast your spell, he has 5 different spells. His Q changes based on what his gun is. So his spell for the red gun is start attacking insanely fast. You could say that this was even a miss. The fact that they even looked to engage. But they thought they saw their window. They still never knew about Sejuani. They hadn't seen her yet. And so they knew that they had Rel nearby. And so this is where they're making a calculated decision. Be like, okay, if Sejuani's nearby, we still might just kill this guy with this one combination here. You see like all these pixels lighting up. Rakan just threw his W. He's about to throw his ultimate. Zeri just threw her ultimate. Rakan, unfortunately, would have preferred to also hit Lulu, but Lulu stayed to the side. Aiming on Aphelios, used both of his summoner spells. He used Cleanse to get away from the Rakan ultimate charm, and then he flashed. So he used the entire game, he sat on these 2 spells for this moment. And this is why AD carries will always go these 2 spells. Because the one time that they engage on you, and they're able to get on you, you need to be able to reposition for the fight. That's how important your life is. He was able to do it, and now he's got this excellent spacing, where now it's like, all right, you can't go on me anymore because of this turret. And now JDG has to try to figure out their exit strategy. Now that Sejuani's here, and they've used all their spells to try to get up here, and all they got were the 2 summoner spells. Now they have to figure out, all right, how are we actually getting out of this situation? Rel thought that she saw a window to go back onto Aphelios right there, but he expertly like moved in and then moved back out, spaced her perfectly. This is her ultimate going off and not hitting the carry. So you could say, even like from an objective point of view, this is the turning point of the game, because at this moment they've expended so many resources to try to kill aiming, and instead of winning this fight, they lose. And here's the big re-raise It's like, oh, Rel ultimate back in. The fact that Akali was watching this fight, she was waiting for one person to say, let me go back in, and she immediately teleported, right? Like, look at this ward right here. Kanavi goes, jump in, and look how quickly the teleport came in. Instantaneous. Oh, you really want to fight? Okay. And then I will come in, and now we will close the door on you because it's 4v3. And so now they go in, they can get all these advantages. Very important that your carry survives and gets out. So that's why Ruler's really far back. But the fact that Ruler on Zeri is this far back, it means that she's no longer threatening the carries. And so now you have 4 people who have each come to bot lane, several ultimates being used, and the fact that KT survived, and especially Aphelios lived, this was huge for them. And then looking at the rest of the game, when these abilities are down, this guy becomes your priority target. I mean, he's always your priority target, but they will have a timer. They know exactly that this guy flashed at 13:26, and they know that it's not until 18:26 when he has it back. And so it's on them to try to create plays to try to punish that. But for the next 5 minutes, Aphelios just like sat by this turret in mid lane and just said, nope, never presenting a target to you. And that was enough of a lead for them to get to feel like they would be pretty good. And that's why they felt really comfortable going into that 1-3-1. And perhaps that's why JDG, let me see if I can find that dive on the Akali now. Probably right here, yeah. That's probably why they thought they had to go for this play. All right, so this is about 4 minutes later. And you can see that Aphelios still has no flash, but he's not even on the map. Right, he basically said, okay, my flash is about to be up. Let me go shop, because now I want to be strong again. I'm not the weak side player anymore. I'm going to go shop. And now they might be thinking, shit, like, I don't know if we can even fight this guy anymore. So they say, let's see if we can go for this. Orianna casts ultimate. Stage 1, it's dodged by Akali with her E. Okay, she's missing a cooldown. She's got no E. We still have 3 champions. Rakan's coming in nearby. Even if she backs off completely, we get this turret. We can call that a win. Now she steps back up, and Orianna hits 2 spells, a Q and W on her. Gets her a little bit chunked, and now Rakan is saying, okay, I've got this window. We've got minions here that are tanking the turret, so I'm going to go after. I've got the window now. I can do this. And you see, as he's landing his combo spell, which is his R plus his W, she casts her ultimate through. And this was the play of the game individually. To be able to respond to that dash with your own dash through them. See how it says charmed right here? That's Rakan's ult taking effect, but she was already traveling for 0.4 seconds of that time. So she kind of negated the charming effect for a bit. You're going to see him dash in, and then she goes across. And so now she's not only further away, but also some of that charm duration happened while she was flying. What were you going to say?
Yeah, taking a little step back here. So the read I'm getting is like KT just played well and reacted well. And so I'm wondering if you had to choose between JDG was just a little too aggressive in the abstract, or KT was really on the lookout for these spots where they could respond to these deviations, and they were just on top of, okay, here's where they're overstepping and here's our moment to punish. Which one of those kind of perspectives do you think was dominant? Was this like JDG just misplaying, or was this just KT being aware that we might just be on the back foot the whole time unless they do something non-standard, and we're looking out for that and we found it and we punished it?
Fantastic question, and phrased really well, and that's insanely attuned to the game for someone who doesn't play that much. So
yeah, you're talking about the spells here, and I'm just like, I don't really know what's going on, but
yeah,
colors
but
or something.
you are spot on, and I think you know the answer, right? You know the answer to your to that question.
I mean, I would guess the latter. I would say this is more KT's fault for responding in the way that they did, where I would kind of default to assuming that it was a bit of an underestimation. Like if JDG just assumes we're the favorites here, we can get away with pushing things a little bit. And as long as we don't push too far, it'll still be fine because we still have our advantages. And they were wrong in where that line is of too far. They pushed a little and it was too far.
Yeah, and certainly this ended up being too far for the big things that we mentioned, that this team wants to team fight. They already have 2 dragons. We're talking about Baron coming up in 4 minutes. They want to definitely be playing around that. Now, I know that the reason that they did this was precisely because Dragon's not for 3 minutes, Baron's not for 3.5 minutes. They're just reaching for something, and so you just have to applaud KT for playing this perfectly to dodge as much as they did. But like this should have been noted as a mistake by JDG, like spending all these ultimates to get nothing, and in fact necessarily losing the Rift Herald. Certainly put them in a bind, and then they had nothing to lean on, and basically for the rest of the game they never were able to accomplish anything. And you have to credit BDD for playing this, you know, damn near perfectly, but at the same time then you can fault JDG for saying, well, we opened the door for you to actually play your best. We probably would have been favored. And this is where a coach will say, like, guys, we drafted team fight. Like, we didn't need to be stretching for these. We could have just waited and literally just played for all of the, you know, try to get this on respawn and then get the Baron after.
JDG's approach seems like what you're supposed to be doing when you're the other team. When you're the underdog, these are the plays you need to be making. And when your expectation is we're just going to be ahead in the lanes, we're going to get Baron, we're going to be very comfortable if we are even numbered in the team fights, then this is just unnecessary. But it's like it's what you would do to come back from being behind, not to push an advantage that you'll still have even when you don't go for this.
You got it.